Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, July 30, 2019. This is the afternoon session of the Lane County Board of Commissioners meeting. We have gone through our items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6B, and 7A, 8A, and we have a couple more items left on our agenda. First is our Public Works items, A and B, and then our executive session. And as a reminder, tomorrow we're meeting from roughly 9 to noon on a work session on the Peace Health Birth Center and the Good Neighbor Authority opportunities, as well as an executive session. So without further ado, we are pleased to welcome Ms. Lindsay Eichner to the table. I'll read the item. This is the 11A, first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing on ordinance number PA 1379 in the matter of co-adopting the Cresswell Transportation System Plan, TSP, for application within the urbanizable area outside the city limits, but within the urban growth boundary, and adopting savings and severability clause, and co-adopting transportation policies to implement the updated TSP goals as text amendments to the comprehensive plan. The applicant is the city of Cresswell. We anticipate setting a second reading and public hearing on August 20, 2019. With us to discuss this matter is Lindsay Eichner. Welcome, Ms. Eichner.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. I simply request to move for approval of the first reading and setting of the second reading, please.
Okay. Is there any controversy associated with this?
None. We took both of these items to the Planning Commission, and there was no public participation. When the city presents, they'll explain the extensive outreach and participation that happened at the city council level and at their Planning Commission level. So.
Okay. All right. I'll call on Commissioner Buck to make a motion to set the second reading and public hearing on this item.
Chair, I think there was a comment at the end of the table.
Oh, okay. Excuse me.
So my iPad's having a little trouble getting the first item up, but the second one, I noticed there wasn't any sort of legislative format printout of these changes where I could see exactly what changed from the prior, or is it a complete rewrite of these sections of Cresswell Code? Because it was difficult for me to tell what was a new goal, what was an old goal that's just being restated, you know, what's changed that we're approving, because these are updates and amendments, so it's really...
Correct. It's some amendments. It's not a complete overhaul of the Goal 12. So this ordinance, the 1379, is just for the city's Goal 12. I can provide copies of that prior to the public hearing, so you can see exactly what those changes are.
It'd be great if I could get that electronically. I won't be here on the 20th, but I want a chance to look at it and maybe provide some comment by email to you and if I have any questions about it. But I didn't see anything reading through it that looked necessarily bad, but it's always more interesting to see what they chose to change versus just a complete reading of the new, revised language. That legislative format with strikeout and all that is much easier for me to ask an intelligent question about it versus just go, oh, this looks good. So, thank you. I appreciate it.
Understand that. Yes, I can provide that to you later this week.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll move approval of item 11A, the first reading, and setting the second reading for a public hearing on August 20th, 2019 at 1:30 p.m. For ordinance number PA 1379 as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to set the second reading and public hearing on August 20, 2019, 1:30 p.m. On ordinance PA 1379. Is there further discussion on the motion? Okay, so the motion was made by Commissioner Buck, seconded by Commissioner Burney. And anything further you'd like to add? Okay, very good. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The motion carries 5-0. All commissioners present voting yes. And thank you so much. We'll see you back here on the 20th of August. But before we see you back on the 20th of August, we're going to read item number 11B, which is the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing on ordinance number PA 1378. In the matter of co-adopting amendments to the Crestville Comprehensive Land Use Plan, Section 3, related to Goal 1, citizen involvement, and Goal 2, land use planning, file number 509 PA 19-05309. We anticipate a motion eventually setting the second reading and public hearing on August 20, 2019. With us today to discuss this important matter is Ms. Lindsay Eigner, Senior Planner for Lane County Department of Public Works. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. I request that you move to approve the first reading and set the second reading, please.
Okay, and are there any changes to the citizen involvement plan?
There are multiple text amendments to Goal 1, and we're supporting those amendments. They're good amendments, and city staff will be here to explain all the reasonings behind those amendments at the public hearing.
Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments from commissioners before we entertain a motion to approve?
I'll move approval of item 11B, the first reading, and setting the second reading and public hearing on, again, August 20th, 2019 at 1:30, ordinance number PA 1378 as stated.
Okay, it's getting moved by Commissioner Buck, seconded by Commissioner Burney to approve the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing on ordinance number PA 1378 for August 20, 2019. Moved by Commissioner Buck, seconded by Commissioner Burney. Is there further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will then move to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. All commissioners voting in the affirmative. Thank you very much. We will see you on August 20th.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now I think we are done. I guess the additional review of assignments would be the two calendar items we just put on there.
Yeah, and we don't usually include those as assignments because they're on a separate
Okay.
track. The one thing I wanted to clarify, Mr. Chair, is Commissioner Buck's question about a work session regarding the recruitment and retention audit. There was never one requested by the board. It was a discussion. As I think when the performance auditor did that presentation, I think the question was raised, but there were never head nods given, so that may have just been a technical matter, but it's not a current assignment if you would like. I can tell you that I believe the department directors have a meeting scheduled to discuss next steps for those three recommendations. I think there are varying feelings about each of those three, which are easier for us to accomplish and which are going to be more lengthy and costly to do. So it may make sense for us to have the opportunity for the directors to have that meeting and discuss that, and then do a work session with the board. We can sort of report on thoughts, and the board can provide direction. If you want to, if you want to do a work session, or if you want to just request the staff report back, either one is fine.
I'm okay with the staff report back, unless somebody wants a work session.
I would say it's reasonable to have the staff meeting first, then the staff report, and then if the board wants to move ahead with something else, we'll do that. Commissioner Burney?
I don't know where else to make this request. It probably should have occurred under Commissioner Business Work Session requests, which caught me off guard there at the end of the last meeting. So if it's okay, if the board will recall, when we talked about some capital plan, we talked about using the tenets of a community benefits agreement as appropriate. And we talked about what size would be appropriate, where does that make sense so as not to increase costs. And my assignment was to go to the Lane County Building Trades and at least get their input. So I'm going to propose at some point we have a work session on the applicable use of the community benefits agreement and what kind of criteria we use as it relates to building and other kinds of expenditures, if that, I'm proposing that. Because I have gotten feedback, but it shouldn't reside with me.
Okay, so do we want to go ahead with
I'm requesting a work session.
work session on that topic? Yes, okay. Let's do that. We'll put that on there and then,
And then there are head nods for a staff report back on recruitment.
yes, and back on the other one, the staff report after you meet with the department directors.
So 3 assignments from today are a discussion with Human Resources regarding the performance auditor recruitment on August 27th, staff report back on the recruitment and retention audit after directors are able to meet and discuss that, and then a work session on the applicable use of community benefits agreements in the organization.
Okay, that's great. Commissioner Buck?
One quick item. Previously, before our break, we talked about working on the performance auditor position on the 27th. We had tentatively had a work session on the census/redistricting, and I'm okay with pushing that out because I feel like the performance auditor position is more timely, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, the agenda team can take up the sequence of those things. Thank you for that observation. I agree. Okay, so now we're ready to move to item number 9, our executive session. And the Board of Commissioners will now meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions and to consult with counsel regarding the rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. This executive session is held pursuant to RS 192.6602E and 2H, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed above. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. Of course, the board reserves the right to come back out of executive session into public session should the need arise. Current plan is to recess the public session of the Board of Commissioners, reconvene the board in the executive session in the Commissioner Conference Room upstairs, and then reserve our right to come out of executive session at the Commissioner Conference Room if that is needed. That's unclear whether we will need to do that or not, but we are reserving our right to do so. So this time we are in recess for, let's say, 5 minutes to get up to the other room. I'm calling our Lane County Board of Commissioners meeting back into session in our open public session of our board meeting, and this is item 10, other business. We've just conferred with legal counsel with the executive session, and we've been discussing a case pending in the Supreme Court of Oregon called Cherniak versus Brown, and it is Supreme Court case number 066564. We've been discussing this case and conferring with counsel, and at this time, I'd like to call for any motion on, to direct the county council on this matter. Commissioner Buck.
I'll move that we direct county council to sign on as amicus curiae or amicus brief on this particular lawsuit. Is there any additional language to that motion?
I think it's good to clarify that this motion that you're referencing is to join Multnomah County's amicus brief, because there are a number of other amicus briefs that are being filed.
As amended to clarify that we would be signing on Multnomah's amicus brief.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved by Commissioner Buck, seconded by Commissioner Burney to direct county council to sign on to the Multnomah County amicus curiae brief in Cherniak versus Brown. We've discussed this in the executive session, but this is the first time we've had an opportunity to discuss this in open session. Are there any comments or questions, or any commissioners wish to be recognized? Commissioner Bozovich.
Thank you. I'm going to be voting against the motion. I've read the Court of Appeals decision on this. I believe they were correct in their decision that Oregon's public trust doctrine under common law is about restraint of the sovereign, i.e. government, from taking action that would reduce or impede the public's enjoyment of public trust facilities like waterways, navigable waterways, submerged lands, and other areas. What this amicus brief is asking for, specifically Multnomah counties, is to flip that and say it's not just about restraining government, it's allowing people to sue for any inactions of a government around these public trust resources. And that opens up a large amount of legal liability for Lane County and any government in Oregon, and will create a huge resource drag on Lane County. In fact, if you look at this suit, it's been in play for over 7 years now. It's probably going to take 8 years to resolve because common law takes a long time. There won't be a large amount of guidance if this gets overturned and they decide there is a fiduciary responsibility, and we will be in lawsuits for years over various things at local governments, and we are already extremely resource constrained. We're constantly being asked to do more, whether it's with public safety, in the Mackenzie River area, or if it's for housing the homeless out in Veneta. Folks want us to do more. This is just going to have us spending money on lawyers, and I really think it's a bad idea to join this amicus.
Okay, Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, and I've heard clearly Commissioner Bozovich's concern regarding the shift in the intent of public trust. I agree. I believe that this is in motion currently. The Supreme Court, in looking at this, would consider the very arguments you're laying in place, Commissioner Bozovich. I'm going to vote in favor of joining with an amicus brief.
Okay, further discussion?
Just say,
Commissioner Buck, then Commissioner Burney.
I believe that there are very valid arguments that Multnomah County is bringing forth in this particular brief that are very important to our next generations. And the information that we're getting from residents here locally and all over the nation is that we as government entities need to be doing more to fight climate change. And I'm very compelled by the arguments that they make, and I think it's our responsibility as a local government entity to do everything that we can to fight climate change, and this is one of those methods.
My opinion is that we're not going to win the fight against climate change, but hopefully we can do some mitigation. I would like to say this. I listen very intently to the pros and cons, and I'm very concerned with the potential for the litigious kinds of results and the, taking our focus away from what we want to do to what we have to do. I heard those loud and clear. I actually was vacillating, and I was vacillating, when I thought we were being used to try and pry open the Supreme Court to even look at this case. It's being looked at. And since it's being looked at, and since I agree with a need to be a little more rigorous as it relates to carbon emissions in the atmosphere, which now have reached over 450 parts per million, I'm going to vote to join this amicus also.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I appreciate the discussion and preparation of the materials by Multnomah County's legal team in our executive session, and also the work of our Lane County Legal Counsel, Mr. Dingle, in helping us understand what those materials mean. Also appreciate the discussion in our executive session about all of the pros and cons of getting involved with this amicus. A couple of things kind of point in the direction of going along with this motion and getting involved as a amicus. The first is that Multnomah County's done almost all the work, and there's almost no work for our legal office to do. So it's not a big lift in terms of spending Lane County tax dollars to sign on to this amicus status. Second, the courts of Oregon, the Supreme Court of Oregon, has already established public trust responsibilities for wildlife, water, submerged lands, and those cases, although old, 100 years old, are still a valid common law responsibilities of government. And so I think that the idea of extending the public trust doctrine to the atmosphere or the air or the non-water public responsibilities is worth it. I have every confidence that the Supreme Court will make a good decision. I'm not sure they're going to extend the public trust doctrine or not, but I hope they do. And this amicus status will show the litigants, who are all Lane County residents, that we are behind them in their efforts to try to protect the environment. And so I think it's a good decision today. Okay, Commissioner Bozovich?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing. My objection to this is about flipping the common law public trust doctrine in Oregon, which talks about restraining government versus the fiduciary responsibility of quote, a trust, and trying to flip this into something that it's not, and what it does to local control. One of the things I truly believe about, and it's been a basis of my political philosophy, is government at the most local level possible, where people have the ability to meet with their representatives and affect change through elections. And what this is doing is going to basically give up control of government to the court system, the state court system, in trying to change that whole common law public trust doctrine. And we've already, by not joining another amicus, said we don't like local control. And I really fear that the current board is getting away from local control. And, I hear some support on this board for things like community rights, yet they're willing to give up control to the courts and to the state legislature on what they can mandate us to do by not joining the amicus with Lynn County, yet we're going to join an amicus with Multnomah County that's basically giving up some of our rights to the courts also. So this is really about giving up local control, and the current board has chosen twice now to give up local control.
Okay, further discussion, Commissioner Farr, then Commissioner Burney.
Mine is brief, and once again, I heard Commissioner Bozovich, and I believe that the appeals court agreed with you, and I believe that the litigants believe that the Supreme Court will disagree with you. And for my vote, I think the Supreme Court will take a look at it and decide whether or not to uphold the appeals court. And
But you're asking to join an argument to overturn the appeals court. That's what signing on to the amicus is doing.
My explanation will be far more than a couple of minutes on that one.
I'm sorry, you're through? Okay. My understanding is that what we were doing is spending almost no Lane County taxpayer money and lending our name to say, yeah, we agree the Supreme Court should look at this and make a decision. And whether we do that or not, the Supreme Court is going to look at this and make a decision. And whatever that decision is, whether we sign on or not, will be applied to the entire state of Oregon. And if that's correct, that is why I'm voting the way.
That is all correct.
Okay, thank you.
But can you clarify that the amicus brief is asking for a specific decision, not just to make a decision?
Oh, yeah. No, the outline that I sent you, it's not make a decision, it's making a decision to reverse the Court of Appeals.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, any commissioners wish to be recognized before we take the vote on this matter? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no.
No?
The vote is 4-1. Commissioner Bozovich voting no. 4 commissioners having voted in the affirmative. The motion to direct the county council is approved. Is there further business this time from either Mr. Dingle or Mr. Okriski?
Not for me, Chair.
Okay, then at this time, we are going to recess the Board of Commissioners meeting until 9 a.m. We have 3 items on our agenda for tomorrow, the Birth Center, the Good Neighbor Agreement, and another executive session. While we're on that topic, what is the approximate length of the executive session?
I don't think it's going to be very long. It's really more, I can't imagine it's going to be more than 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, well, we should be out of here by noon then. Yes, Commissioner Farr.
Well, I'll probably be missing it. I'm scheduled to be in Salem for a noon meeting of the Vietnam Wall Steering Committee,
Okay,
which I may indeed be missing.
okay.
Mr. Can I
Yes.
have a backseat? One quick,
Yep.
made a comment earlier about the,
I didn't really, that must be a Midwest expression I am not familiar with. Either a millennial or.
Backseat?
well, if it's a millennial statement, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, I don't know who's in what generation anymore.
I made a
Gen
comment
Xer or
earlier
whatever.
about the lease with the city of Eugene, that was up. It's actually, we had, in our current purchase and sale agreement with the city of Eugene, the city has a lease until August of 2020, at which time that lease will be up. So I just wanted to clarify that the city of Eugene has its lease in the PSB unless some other action is taken until August of 2020.
Right, the only other action would be that they build the city hall sooner than that.
Right.
That's the other.
Highly unlikely.
Well, I'm just saying that's the contingency that's in the lease.
All we need is a tarp, and they can use that.
Thank you.
So, there being no further business, the board is recessed until 9 a.m. Thank you so much.
Backseat.